A freezing winter storm pounded the backroads near the Bitterroot Mountains in Montana, making visibility nearly impossible. Wind howled, icy rain slammed against the windshield, and Officer Callum Reeves was minutes from ending his shift when a dark, mud-caked shape appeared through the blur of his headlights. It was a horse. Its coat, once sleek, was dull and scarred. Mud clung to its legs, and across its chest a stark white star-shaped marking stood out, glowing faintly in the storm. But the strangest thing, it didn't bolt. Instead, it walked directly to Callum's cruiser, pressed its muzzle against the window, and when Callum stepped out, it gently tugged on his sleeve with its teeth, agitated, vocal, and clearly in distress. That night marked 5 years since Callum's father had passed, a renowned horse trainer whose legacy Callum had buried along with his own fear. After a traumatic riding accident at 12 left him with a jagged facial scar and a lifelong aversion to horses, he'd walked away from his father's world. But now, staring into the frantic eyes of this trembling mare, something shifted. "What happened to you, girl?" he whispered. The mare let out a high-pitched whinny, turned, took a few steps, then looked back. When she repeated the behavior, it became clear. She wanted him to follow. Protocol said to call animal control. But instinct, and maybe something deeper, told him otherwise. He radioed in his location and followed her into the storm. They trekked through thick brush, the mud pulling at his boots. After nearly half a mile, the mare led him to the edge of Dead Horse Creek, where a steep 6-meter drop disappeared into blackness. The horse grew frantic, pacing and whinnying toward the edge. Callum shined his flashlight down. A foal, tiny, trembling and barely moving, lay crumpled in the rising creek, partially sheltered by a rocky outcrop. It let out a weak, rasping cry. When the mare saw Callum kneel beside her foal, she released a deep, trembling sound, almost a moan. Tears streaked her muzzle, mingling with the rain. Her front hoof struck the muddy ground rhythmically, a distress behavior so rare in wild horses, experts later called it a grief response, something nearly never seen. Callum, with 15 years on rural patrol, had never witnessed anything like it, and yet something about the sight pulled him back to his 12-year-old self, lying broken on a barn floor, his father's voice echoing in the distance. That scar, still tracing down his right cheek, pulsed like it remembered. The foal needed warmth. Fast. Without hesitation, Callum took off his bulletproof vest and thermal outerwear. Using the vest, he built a makeshift stretcher, reinforced with nearby branches. Then, shirt soaked and teeth chattering, he wrapped the foal in his thermal lining. But the next challenge was harder, getting the mare to trust him during the climb. Slowly he met her eyes, speaking gently. "I know you're scared, me too, but I can't get him out of here alone." Against every odd, she let him place a hand on her neck. That moment, silent, soaked, and electric, was the start of something neither of them fully understood. He guided her up the safest path he could find, hauling the foal on the stretcher. His hands bled, his legs buckled, the cold dug into his bones. But 47 minutes after first meeting the mare, they reached the top. Callum blasted the cruiser's heat, wrapped the foal's legs in dry socks from his trunk, and applied chemical heat packs to its neck and chest. He called ahead to the Bitterroot Equine Emergency Center, 27 miles away. The mare only entered the modified animal compartment of the vehicle when she could see her foal clearly, a mother's final condition. When they arrived, a full team was waiting. The foal was rushed into critical care. The mare was housed in a nearby stall with a glass divider, close enough to never lose sight of her baby. The attending vet, Dr. Eduardo Martinez, nearing retirement after 32 years, ran tests through the night. The diagnosis was grim: dehydration, hypothermia, bacterial infection, anemia from untreated parasites, malnutrition, and early signs of sepsis. "If you hadn't found him tonight," the doctor told Callum, "he wouldn't have made it to sunrise." And the mare, "In all my years, I've only seen 2 cases of a horse intentionally seeking help like that. What she did, that's almost beyond science." Callum stayed, through 4 days and nights. He slept in a chair, spoke to the foal, helped with treatments. The foal improved until day 5, when a sudden fever and coughing sent him crashing again. Pneumonia. For 3 more days, Callum barely left the stall. He helped administer nebulizers, stayed awake through breathing crises, and never stopped talking to the colt. Staff noticed. The foal's heart rate always dropped when Callum was near. The mare refused to eat unless she could see him. Vet staff allowed brief reunions, where she gently licked and comforted him. "He's her everything," observed Dr. Sophia Lang, a behaviorist. "And you, Callum, he sees you the same way." During those long vigils, Callum shared his story: the accident, the scar, the guilt, the father he never reconciled with, and how somehow through all of this, he was beginning to heal. "I think they found me as much as I found them," he whispered one night. Then came trouble. A man named Jason Blackwell showed up with a lawyer. He claimed ownership of the horses. The markings matched vague documents. He demanded their return. Callum used his own savings to hire Ellen Ramirez, an animal rights attorney. A legal battle began. But then, the internet took notice. A volunteer posted photos with the hashtag #Justice for the Stars, referring to the white markings. The story went viral. Former workers from Blackwell's ranch came forward. A local vet submitted official warnings he had once issued about the horses' treatment. Community outrage exploded. Within 2 weeks, legal and medical costs were fully covered by donations. After 5 weeks of legal back and forth, the case was moved to Hamilton County Civic Hall due to overwhelming public interest. The judge ruled Blackwell's rights were revoked permanently. A 5-year ban on owning animals was imposed. Callum could now adopt them, but he faced another challenge. His father's ranch near Darby, Montana, had been left in disrepair. So the community stepped in. More than 60 volunteers from farmers, builders, electricians, retirees gathered one weekend. They built new stalls, fencing, drainage, even a training area, donated lumber, hauled hay, repaired everything. A therapeutic riding instructor named Sarah Castillo noticed something else. "These horses have emotional intelligence I rarely see. And you, Callum, you don't train them, you connect with them." Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The ranch that had once been Callum's father's pride began to breathe again, resurrected by the calloused hands of volunteers and the resilient spirit of the community. Callum spent his days divided between his shifts as a police officer and his responsibilities at the ranch. Each morning, before sunrise, he fed the horses. The mare, whom he had named Nova, began to gain weight, her coat regaining its shine and her eyes lighting up with new confidence. The foal, now called Star, grew stronger each day, his juvenile curiosity flourishing under constant care. As summer arrived, bringing clear skies and verdant fields to Montana, Callum began studying books on equine behavior and animal-assisted therapy. He converted his father's old office into a small library, devouring all the knowledge his father had tried to share years ago. "If he could see me now," Callum sometimes murmured to Nova as he brushed her coat in the golden afternoons. The mare seemed to understand, tilting her head to meet his eyes with an almost human gaze in its intensity. It was Sarah Castillo who first suggested that the ranch could serve a greater purpose. "You have something special here, Callum," she said one afternoon, watching him work with Star in the newly built arena. "It's not just a refuge for these two, it could be a place of healing for many others." The idea planted a seed that soon began to grow. With Sarah's guidance and the community's continued support, Callum began transforming the ranch into something his father could never have imagined: a sanctuary for rescued horses and a center for children facing their own challenges. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It required careful planning, more fundraising, and many sleepless nights studying for the necessary certifications. But little by little, the dream began to take physical form. New facilities emerged, forms were filled out, and approvals were obtained. And at the center of it all were Nova and Star, their saviors as much as their saved. Autumn brought a change in the air, and the first visitors to the newly established Mountain Star Ranch. The pilot program began with just 5 children, all facing challenges ranging from anxiety to learning difficulties. Jamie, a 10-year-old boy with ADHD who could rarely sit still for more than a few minutes, was the first to form a connection with Star. The young colt, now a handsome yearling, seemed to intuitively understand Jamie's restless energy, adjusting his own behavior to accommodate the child. "He never gets startled," Jamie explained to his amazed parents after his 3rd session. "Even when I get too excited, it's like he knows what I'm feeling before I even know it." The transformation in the children was remarkable, but equally impressive was Callum's evolution. The man who once avoided even the mention of horses now spent his days immersed in their world. His posture changed, shoulders more relaxed, smiles more frequent, the tension he had carried for decades slowly dissolving. His scar, once a constant reminder of trauma, became a teaching tool. "Scars show us where we've been," he would tell the children, "not where we're going." On a particularly golden October afternoon, as the aspen leaves trembled in their yellow splendor, Dr. Sophia Lang visited the ranch for a follow-up. I've never seen a recovery like Star's," she commented, watching the young horse trot across the field, his coat gleaming in the sunlight. "It's not just physical. There's something in his eyes now. A purpose." Callum nodded, leaning against the fence. "It's the same for Nova. And for me, I guess." He touched his scar absently. We're all finding our way back." That evening, as the sun painted the mountains in hues of amber and purple, Callum sat on the porch of the renovated farmhouse. Nova approached, followed closely by Star, now almost as tall as his mother. Without prompting, they stood beside him, Nova's muzzle gently resting on his shoulder. "Soz, thank you," he whispered to them both, "for finding me." Winter returned to Montana, bringing with it the anniversary of that fateful night when 3 broken souls found each other in the storm. The ranch was now a different place, alive with activity and purpose. The pilot program had expanded to 15 children, with a waiting list growing longer each week. 2 more rescued horses had joined the family, each with their own story of hardship and resilience. On a clear December morning, with the mountains wearing their white crowns against a brilliant blue sky, a special celebration was planned. The children had worked for weeks on a surprise for Callum, a commemorative plaque to be mounted at the entrance of the main barn. Sarah had helped coordinate everything, keeping Callum distracted with paperwork in the office while the children gathered with their parents in the covered arena. Nova and Star were groomed to perfection, wearing special halters decorated with blue ribbons. When Callum finally walked into the arena, his steps faltered at the sight before him. All 15 children standing in a semicircle, their parents behind them, and in the center Nova and Star, standing proud and tall. Jamie stepped forward holding a wooden plaque. His voice, usually hurried and scattered, was clear and steady. "To Officer Callum Reeves, who showed us that rescue goes both ways, from all of us at Mountain Star Ranch." Callum's eyes misted as he accepted the plaque, his fingers tracing the engraved words. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "You don't need to say anything," Sarah replied softly. "Just look around you. This is what healing looks like." The ceremony continued with each child sharing a story about their experience at the ranch. Parents spoke of transformations they had witnessed in their children, renewed confidence, improved focus, reduced anxiety. The local newspaper was there, capturing moments that would soon spread the ranch's reputation even further. County Sheriff Bill Mahoney approached Callum afterward, shaking his hand firmly. "Your father would be proud, son, real proud." For the first time, those words didn't bring pain. Callum nodded, feeling the truth of them settle in his chest, warm and right. "I think so too, sir. I think so too." Spring burst upon Montana in a riot of wildflowers and new life. The ranch expanded again, adding a covered therapy space for year-round sessions. Grant money flowed in, allowing Callum to hire full-time staff and expand their outreach program to neighboring counties. On a perfect May afternoon, as golden light streamed through the trees, Callum stood at the edge of the training ring, watching Nova and Star move in perfect harmony. Star was now fully grown, a magnificent young horse, with his mother's intelligence and a gentleness all his own. Sophia Lang stood beside him, clipboard in hand, continuing her research on the extraordinary bond between the rescued horses and the children they helped. "The university wants to establish a formal research partnership," she told Callum. "What you've created here is changing how we understand equine therapy." Callum shook his head, still amazed by how far they'd come. "I didn't create anything. They did." He nodded toward Nova and Star. "I just followed where they led." A small commotion at the ranch entrance caught their attention. A patrol car pulled up, and Officer Mike Jenkins stepped out looking concerned. "Callum," he called, waving him over. "Found something on my route I thought you should see." In the back of the patrol car, wrapped in a blanket, was a small, terrified filly, no more than a few months old. "Someone abandoned her on County Road 12, Jenkins explained. "Remembered your place and thought—" He didn't need to finish. Callum was already opening the door, speaking in soft tones to the frightened animal. The filly's eyes were wide with fear. But as Callum gently reached out, something changed in her gaze. Recognition, perhaps, not of the man, but of his intent. Trust given, despite all evidence that humans had failed her before. Nova and Star approached the fence, whinnying softly. The filly's ears pricked forward at the sound. "Bring her in," Callum said. "She's home now." As he led the trembling filly across the yard towards the barn, children from the afternoon session gathered at a respectful distance, their faces showing concern and love. Parents watched from the waiting area, some with tears in their eyes. Staff members prepared a clean stall with fresh bedding. Nova and Star followed alongside the fence line, keeping pace with the newcomer, already accepting her as part of their herd. Callum felt the weight of the moment settle around him like a mantle. It wasn't just about one more rescue. It was about the perfect circle they had created, a place where the rescued became rescuers, where scars became strengths, where past traumas transformed into future purpose. As he settled the filly into her new home, with Nova nickering encouragement from the neighboring stall, Callum caught his reflection in the water bucket. The scar on his cheek no longer seemed like a mark of shame or fear. It was simply part of his story, a chapter, not the conclusion. Outside, the mountains stood sentinel around the valley, unchanged, yet witnessing everything. The same mountains that had seen a frightened boy turn away from his father's legacy, a broken man follow a desperate mare through a storm, and now, a healer welcoming another chance at redemption. "Welcome to Mountain Star," Callum whispered to the filly, "where we all get a second chance." In the distance, thunder rumbled, not threatening but promising new life, a reminder that storms always passed, and even in their wake, something beautiful could emerge. The local sheriff, who had come to visit the new arrival, approached Callum as he exited the barn. "You know," he said, placing a hand on Callum's shoulder, "we've been thinking about establishing a rural mounted rescue unit. The county commissioners unanimously approved the budget last week." Callum raised an eyebrow. "That's great news, but why are you telling me?" "Because we need someone to train the officers and horses, someone who understands both sides of the equation." The sheriff smiled. "Part-time position would still leave you plenty of time for this place." Before Callum could respond, Jamie came running up, his face flushed with excitement. "Officer Reeves, can I help with the new horse?" "I promise I'll be calm and quiet." Callum looked from the sheriff to the boy, then back to the barn where 3 rescued horses now resided. His life had expanded in ways he could never have imagined that stormy night 1 year ago. "Yes," he said finally, answering both of them at once. "Yes, I think that would work perfectly." That evening, after all the visitors had gone and the ranch settled into its nightly routine, Callum sat on the porch steps of his father's house, now truly his home. Nova and Star grazed peacefully in the nearby paddock, occasionally glancing up to check on him as they always did. He pulled out his father's old leather journal, its pages worn with use. He'd found it months ago in the attic, but hadn't been ready to read it until now. Opening it to the first page, his father's familiar handwriting greeted him. "A horse's trust is never given freely. It must be earned with patience, respect, and absolute honesty. When a horse chooses you, it's offering you its vulnerability in exchange for your protection. There is no greater responsibility, no greater honor." Callum read the words again, feeling their truth resonate through him. He thought of Nova, choosing him in that storm, offering her trust when she had every reason to withhold it. He thought of Star, growing strong under his care, and now this new filly, another chapter beginning. From inside the house, the phone rang. Probably another family seeking information about the program, another child needing the special magic that seemed to happen when wounded souls, both human and equine, found each other. As he stood to answer it, Callum paused to look at the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. Somewhere out there was the spot where everything had changed, where a desperate mare had led a reluctant man to a foal in need, setting all 3 of them on a path to healing. "I wasn't the miracle here," he often told visitors to the ranch. "That mare, bruised, starving, made a choice. She trusted. She believed help existed, and somehow she believed in me." The ranch was now known throughout Montana as a place of second chances, where broken things became whole again. But those who spent time there understood the deeper truth. It wasn't just a place of healing. It was a testament to the transformative power of connection, to what becomes possible when we open ourselves to trust despite our fears. As twilight deepened into night, the stars emerged one by one above Mountain Star Ranch, each one a pinpoint of light against the vastness of the sky, like hope against despair, like trust against fear, like finding family in the most unexpected places. "Thank you," Callum whispered to the night, to his father's memory, to the horses who had saved him as much as he had saved them, for bringing me home. In the paddock, Nova lifted her head, her white star marking catching the moonlight. Her eyes met Callum's across the distance, reflecting a wisdom and intelligence that science could never fully explain. She nickered softly, a sound of reassurance and belonging. And in that moment, under the vast Montana sky, surrounded by mountains that had witnessed his journey from broken to whole, Callum Reeves knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the rescue we give becomes the rescue we need. My friends, we have reached the end of the story. Did you like it? What lesson can you bring to life from this story? Leave it here in the comments. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and watch this video that's playing on your screen. This story will impact you. See you next time.